not here to judge whether they wait till the 31st or whether they do what we did in Alsea. My scope is to serve the students and families for the Alsea School District.
Defying orders. A small school district in Oregon continues to keep classes running with masks optional. That goes directly against state mandates to keep them on in the classroom until March 31st. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Deborah Knapp.
And I'm Steve Dunn. So what happens if districts don't follow guidelines until the change? As K2's Dan McCarthy reports for Project Education tonight, the answer is unclear and controversial.
We've been in full operation K-12 for 2 weeks now with masks optional.
On January 13th, the Alsea School District defied Oregon's mandatory mask order for students and staff. It's now up to students and staff to decide for themselves.
About 90+% of our kids are mask-free.
When we first reported on this story, the state promised swift action. But a month later, the masks are still off. And Superintendent Marc Thielman says they're staying off, with a change in guidance only 6 weeks away.
Mask optional is the right policy. It's the policy that needs to be implemented by the government sooner than later.
On March 31st, the state will give power back to school districts. But what will happen to Alsea that decided to do it sooner? The state said they'd push back with punishment, pulling federal funds, sending Oregon OSHA out to investigate, which could lead to larger fines. But Thielman claims that with a finish line in sight, OSHA isn't going on the offensive.
In terms of them showing up, trying to give us large fines, I haven't had any indication from them that that's in their interest. I think they're well aware that with masking being lifted, that took a lot of the pressure off the situation.
Oregon OSHA wouldn't respond to any requests pertaining to their open investigation on Alsea. They previously fined the Adrian District in Malheur County more than $11,000 for similar defiance. So we wanted to know, what will the state do if other districts follow suit? K2 reporter Genevieve Rayom asked the Oregon Department of Education directly.
You know, there is at least one school district that is openly defying that mandate. Is there anything ODE is doing to crack down on districts to not make any changes prior to March 31st?
Again, I think I would back up to the reasons why we have asked everyone to hold off and why we've given the date of March 31st in the first place.
After not addressing the question directly, Director Colt Gill eventually said the state will use the threat of withholding federal funds like they're doing to the Alsea District.
These funds required school districts to assure that they would continue to follow federal and state guidelines and rules and laws. And currently, until March 31st, the law in Oregon is to maintain universal masking.
Superintendent Thielman told us it's roughly $275,000. But here's the kicker. He's confident that the money will be returned in April.
What I would like to do is give you my word that on April 1st, I will notify Colt Gill that the Alsea School District is in compliance with masking policy.
And so in your mind, you think that would cover it and that would bring the resumption of those funds and no harm, no foul, essentially?
Well, that's what he said.
So we went right back to state leadership about this, and they actually gave us the letter that they sent to Superintendent Marc Thielman and the Alsea School District. Now, on page 4 of this letter, it says that in order to resume access to reimbursement of ESSER funds, the state needs to receive and accept an explanation of how the district has come into compliance with the rules, proof that they've notified the community of those changes, and assurance that they'll stay in compliance. However, in terms of what that acceptance means by ODE and whether or not the funds could still be withheld, they didn't answer any other questions.
It has not been a smooth 3 weeks for me, but I'd go back and do it again because of what I'm seeing in the classroom and in the kids.
Marc Thielman is also a candidate for Oregon governor. Prior to the decision to lift the mask mandate, they had an outbreak that briefly shut down the district. Director Gill said it's the staff who suffer when leaders try to defy state orders.
You're putting school employees who have worked very hard for a number of months to serve our students and our families in a very difficult position of choosing whether they're going to follow the laws of the state of Oregon for the next 6 weeks or whether they are going to follow a direction that's in conflict with that law.
In 6 weeks, Oregon leadership will put the ball in each district's court. But if Alsea's any indication, it may remain complicated until the school year and perhaps the pandemic is over.
Is the deadline to have kids up to date on their vaccines or they won't be allowed to go to school. But there is a bit of a twist this year. K2's Dan McCarthy joins us live from the Oregon Health Authority with more on this. So, Dan, the state says a few counties were granted exclusions.
Yeah, that's right, Angelica. 7 of them were given more time to have their exclusion day. That basically they say it's because of the impacts of the Omicron variant, and that includes right here in Multnomah County, which is getting a delay of their own. But let's take a look at your screen here. You can see which of the 7 counties are going to be delayed as a result of that decision by the Oregon Health Authority. March 30th is the new exclusion day for Douglas County. It's April 20th for schools in Clackamas, Clatsop, Jefferson, Morrow, Multnomah, and Yamhill counties. Now, letters are going to be sent home to families if their child's record shows that they're missing vaccines. The state says that more than 25,000 of them were sent out last year. If you get one, OHA is recommending that parents first contact 211 or their local health department to try and track down a vaccine clinic and then update their school or daycare once they've got their shots. Now, keep in mind there are 11 different vaccinations that a child needs or that exclusion note or exemption rather. But one thing to do that we do want to specify this morning, as well as the state, of course, the coronavirus vaccination is not among those 11 vaccinations that are required by children, Angelica.
Dan, the state is saying that this is a one-time only situation for these counties delaying exemption day.
Yeah, exactly. And they say it's really having to do with the Omicron variant itself, leading to some of the impacts on staffing that we've seen over the past 2 months or so. They want to give them more time, but they did stress that this is a one-time deal as they try to respond to what's going on with the coronavirus.